What's going on, y'all, and welcome back to another episode of the JuiceBox presented by Lock City. You got Whitey here today. Happy Saturday. Hopefully everyone's having a good weekend or good start to the weekend by the time you get around to listening to this. This is going to be an outlook into our upcoming Blast Bounty Tournament. CS2 is finally back right around the corner. We got a couple of big updates that we'll talk about, but this video is largely just going to be an overview of the Blast Bounty Malta Tournament for those of you that may not have followed a Blast Bounty video from us before, or you're just, I guess, relatively unfamiliar with the tournament. And then from there, we'll get into obviously stage one, or the first round of games. That's going to take place starting on Tuesday of next week. There's going to be 4 games a day over the course of the first 4 days. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then stage 2, I suppose it's technically called, the round of 16, will take place this weekend. That's going to be Saturday and Sunday. And then going forward from that, we are going to be starting season 4 of CS2 on Monday, on January the 19th. I assume at that point in time, we're going to be switching over and dropping Train and introducing Anubis into the map pool. These first 2 rounds for sure will be played with Train as opposed to Anubis because stage 4 will not have started yet. But then I assume once we get into the last portion of this tournament, that's going to be played with Anubis instead of Train. But no official announcement has been made on that yet, at least that I have seen. So we'll just assume, at least for the first 2 stages, like I said, we're going to be dealing with Train here, talking about Train and the map pool. And then once we see an announcement, once we get to that point later in the tournament with 8 teams remaining, we can talk about whether or not Anubis will be included up at that point. So without further ado, let's just talk about tournament setup, kind of what we're looking at for Blast Bounty here. So it's going to be taking place in Malta, similar to, I believe, both of the first 2. Definitely the most recent one was in Malta. In terms of a prize pool, looks like to be determined for some reason. But nonetheless, a lot of big teams in this tournament. We got Furia, we got Falcons, Team Vitality, Aurora, Team Spirit, Team Liquid, Navi, Astralis, Heroic, 3D Max, Pain Gaming, FaZe Clan, Paravision, Gentlemates, Gamer Legion, FUT, Bet Boom, Fnatic, M80, Passion UA, Hatu, Ninjas in Pajamas, Energy, Eyeballers, Inner Circle, OG with a nice new logo, 9, Ents, Virtus Pro, Monte, Sinners, and Ecstatic. So 32 pretty decent teams. Obviously toward the top, a lot of the big names that most of you would be familiar with, but a lot of good competition down here as well. Can't take away from majority of these teams. We do have some solid rosters here. So then overall, in terms of how things are going to be laid out here, like I said, there's going to be 4 games a day for each of the first 4 days here. That's going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So this video here, we're going to be talking about the Tuesday matches. That's going to be OG and FUT, Eyeballers and FaZe, Fnatic and Astralis, and Hatu and Aurora. And then, like I said, each of these first 4 days, because season 4 will not have started yet, we're going to be dropping Train. We're going to be adding Anubis in. That's going to take place on Monday, January 19th. So the latter part of this tournament, I would assume, is going to be played with Anubis. But again, the first half of this tournament, or first 2 rounds of this tournament at least, are going to be played with Train. So something to take into consideration there before we hop over. But now let's switch over. Let's hop on to Thunderpick. And let's talk about what we have on the board here for the first day of action, which again is going to be Tuesday, January the 13th. For those of you that watch the videos regularly, you know that all of the odds that will be discussed in today's video will be on thunderpick.io, which is one of the top books in the world for esports betting. You can deposit on Thunderpick using crypto, credit card, Apple Pay, Visa Debit, or via their new gift card deposit, which allows you to purchase and deposit a Thunderpick gift card amount directly to your balance. And Thunderpick has lines for all of your favorite esports, including but not limited to CS2, League, Dota, Valorant, Overwatch, COD, Fortnite, Rocket League, and so much more. If you visit tinyurl.com/LockCityTP, you can get a 100% deposit match on your first deposit all the way up to $600 or whatever the equivalent is in your local currency. Any amount that you deposit up to $600 will get immediately matched by Thunderpick for you to be able to use for your esports picks. We've obviously been super profitable on CS2, but with that deposit bonus, you can always try your luck with some of your other favorites with that free money to play with. That's tinyurl.com/LockCityTP for a 100%
100% deposit bonus at Thunderpick up to $600.
All right, so we're going to have 2 parlays on the board here for the first day for Tuesday, January the 13th. And then I'm also going to be throwing in, I didn't do this at the major and I kind of regretted it up until the playoffs when Spirit inevitably lost. But my regular tournament winner here, I'm going to be going Team Spirit. For whatever reason, when I tried to place this, they maxed me at $33.57 as a max bet. But nonetheless, put it in regardless, just for tracking purposes, 4.75 times your money. Maybe they can sneak an upset here. They're not one of the tournament favorites. I think Furia had the shortest odds, but nonetheless, going to do my usual Team Spirit bandwagon approach there. Well, not really bandwagoning at this point. When Shiro joined, I was technically a bandwagoner, but now I guess it's been a couple of years. But nonetheless, I'm going to be rocking with Spirit there for the tournament winner. And then heading up here, these are the 2 parlays that we're going to talk about. I'm going to be going with the first 2 games of the morning and then the next 2 games of the morning. So the first one, we're going to be rocking with FUT on the money line against OG. This one I went back and forth a lot on, and we'll talk about it here in a second. And then I'm going to be going with FaZe Clan over Eyeballers, which we saw come out of the draft yesterday. Eyeballers with a very gutsy FaZe Clan pick. So firstly, we're going to talk about OG and FUT. Biggest reason here I wanted to pick OG, well, number of reasons, I suppose. Number one, love their new logo, and in all seriousness, I think that gives them a little bit more identity coming into this one. If we look at their roster, that actually surprises me for public consensus, 42%. I thought it would be a little bit lower. But when we look at this roster, obviously Cadian gives them a lot of further name recognition here. Flamus, really good player. Adam Bede, maybe not the better of the 2 twins, but still a solid player. Spook's great. Eros Doce, I mean, he's got some crazy fuck ups at some point, but he's got a lot of nice highlights as well. I did like what he did on Saw way back when, so I'm a little bit of an Eros Doce fan. I actually do like this roster. And then on the FUT side of things, obviously, from top to bottom, more or less, they've been together a lot longer here than this OG team. They're going to be getting their reps in, OG obviously, but with this being a best of 3, I do have to give the edge to FUT. Everything in here is going to be a best of 3. There's not going to be any best of 1s throughout this tournament. So the upsets we saw in the last Blast Bounty tournament, at least in the first round, I don't think there were any upsets all the way across the board in the most recent Blast Bounty. I expect there to be a lot more in this one, but I don't think this is going to be one of the matches where we see one necessarily. In terms of like high seed, low seed, maybe, but in terms of like bookmaker value, I do think that FUT is going to come through on a best of 3. OG just doesn't have enough reps in. I would love to see them win this, but Nuke 0%, and then Train, Overpass, and Ancient, they have like no total reps, and then obviously with the new roster, even more so. Inferno could be something where they might look competitive on it, but over the course of 3 maps, I definitely have to give the edge to FUT here. So that's going to be the first leg, 1.50 times your money. And then I'm going to be rocking with FaZe Clan against Eyeballers. Obviously pretty straightforward, 1.22 times your money. But in terms of what we're looking at here, 70% is actually lower than I would have expected on the FaZe side of things. We got JW here over on Eyeballers, so a little bit of an unction in terms of JW versus Kerrigan. Scrolling down here, obviously map pool looks pretty good for Eyeballers, but again, against weaker competition. On the FaZe Clan side of things, we saw what they were able to do at the major. Sure, they may have fumbled in stage 1. They may not have looked super great at certain times throughout the course of the major, but you have to give respect where respect is due. They made it through to the playoffs, made it through to the final. So kudos to FaZe Clan. They're definitely not losing a best of 3 to Eyeballers, even if they start out slow and potentially have a close map, maybe even 2 close maps. But they're definitely going to get the job done on the money line. So we're going to use that to boost the odds a little bit of FUT. So then FUT and FaZe Clan, we're just going to go 1 unit here for the first day because God only knows what might happen. But 1 unit, 1.83 times your money is going to pay obviously 1.83 units. And then over for the second parlay here, we're going to be going with the 2 later matches in the morning / afternoon. That's going to be Astralis and then Aurora. So Aurora is one of the teams that's really going to benefit once we do flip over to having Anubis back in the map pool. They have a very strong Anubis, and then on the flip side, their Train really sucks. But we're going to take them for this early stage regardless. We'll talk about that one actually secondly. So first, let's hop into Fnatic and Astralis. In terms of public perception here, it looks like public consensus is 65% Astralis, which is, I guess, kind of fair. I would have thought it would be a little bit lower. On the Astralis side of things, obviously some roster changes coming into this. And then on the Fnatic side of things, they have Maiden in here now. But I do like this Astralis roster. I think they could surprise some people. not necessarily like at this tournament, but I think as the season progresses, I think they're a team that I don't expect them to sneak into the top 10, but like maybe on the verge of the top 10, maybe like a 9, 10, 11, 12, I think is realistic. It looks like they're 14th now, which is higher than what I would have thought, but they were able to retain their core, so that makes sense. But I think Astralis obviously could win Inferno. They could win Nuke. They could win Overpass. They could win Ancient. Dust 2 is obviously their insta-ban. They could even win this Mirage if they catch Fnatic on an off day here. So I'm going to be going with Astralis. And then second leg there is going to just be Aurora against Hatu. This one, again, relatively straightforward. Aurora 67% is lower than I would have thought. I guess people aren't too high on the Soulfly acquisition. So Aurora moved Jota to the bench, ended up swapping in for Soulfly here from Fireflux. And then on the Hatu side of things, have most of their core, but they have Kalash in here from Amcal. So I do like Aurora to win this. Again, even though we're going to be playing with Train, I don't expect to see Train necessarily. I think that Hatu will probably pick into like a Mirage. Aurora is going to insta-ban Ancient. Hatu is going to insta-ban Inferno, which is great for Aurora because it's the weakest map in their pool. And then from there on forward, I think it's relatively straightforward that Aurora is going to take care of business here. So that's going to be my second leg there. Astralis and Aurora pays 2.14 times your money. So one unit here, is going to pay 2.14 units. And those will be the first two that we're rocking with here for Tuesday morning. I'll have a follow-up video probably tomorrow, maybe later today, but probably tomorrow once I sort through the next day here, roster changes, and get out picks for the Wednesday plays. But expect that over the next 24 hours or so. And otherwise, thank y'all for listening. Like and subscribe if you like the content that you've been getting. Discord at the bottom of the screen, discord.gg/LockCity. We have a nice community there. We talk about the plays all day long as the matches are ongoing, so on and so forth. For those of you that have been in there, you obviously know. And we'll see y'all back here tomorrow with some more CS content. Thank you for listening.